Buddies, yo! What's up? It's Concert Buddy. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers, the fill-in fathers, stepfathers, adopted fathers, all y'all. Celebrate you today. Shout out to you. Quick video. We're going to talk about the number one Grail. Number two, number one. I crossed off the list. I'm going to tell you all about it coming up. Let's go. Big day here on the channel. Finally, as I said in the open, finally knocked my number one off my Grail list, hit list, whatever you want to call it. And it's been on there for a long time. And I'll kind of walk through, and this record, I will go ahead and preface and say this is probably not everyone's cup of tea. Totally cool. But this is my experience finally hunting down this record.
This is the best infomercial for a record ever.
The record, drum roll please, is the 2009 terrific album, in my opinion, by Hurt called Goodbye to the Machine. Now, I've been looking for this for years. This came out on Amusement Records, or Amusement Recordings. Style of music's kind of like, obviously, alt rock, alternative rock. And there's kind of a backstory behind this, because this obviously wasn't printed out, mass released, as far as I know, because it doesn't come up for sale very often. I've never seen it on eBay. I've never seen it on any other site but Discogs. And then when I do see it on Discogs, hopefully there's not a glare, it goes like that. So I was fortunate. And if you want to be a nosy Nancy, you can go on Discogs and figure out what I paid, because I'm the last one who bought one. It wasn't cheap.
I'm going to take you to the bank, Senator Trent. To the blood bank.
But I've been searching for this for a long time. And there's a personal attachment. A couple personal attachments, but the one I'm going to tell about the story is that an old friend of mine, who I haven't seen in a couple years, was in this band. He was in this band on this album. And it's a very interesting story. Should I put the record down? I'll hold the record. Why not? So, bassist Rick Moore was a guy I used to work with in my first job out of college, technically, and then second job, we all moved to the same company. Long story. But he was in like the corporate world like me, and he loved music, and he gave reckless abandon to the corporate world and just went for it. And he wanted to join this band. The band was formed in 2000 by Jay Lauren, I think, and how we pronounce it. And he's the guy who sings. He does the violin stuff on some of their work. If you listen to it, they've got a pretty good discography. If you want to start with anything, I think it's Volume 1 and Volume 2 are pretty good. Probably their signature song that they did before Rick joined the band was 10-Ton Brick.
Oh, this 10-ton brick would treat me like this little brick, he licked all the slips, yeah.
So 10-Ton Brick, it kind of got them airplay on alt radio across the country, particularly in our market. And they needed a bass player. And my friend Rick gave up the corporate world. He flew to Virginia. I don't think necessarily to join this band, but to just chase his music career. He had already been in some local bands and done that sort of thing. And if my memory serves, I think he even was like painting houses with some friends trying to get another band off the ground when the opening for Hurt and the bass position opened up. And he actually, the story goes, he bought a one-way ticket to LA to audition. And the one-way ticket meaning I'm either going to do it or I'm not. And he flew out there and he got the gig, and they started making music with these guys. And I saw him a couple times when they would come through town. And I think it was only really one of those times I was able to talk to him very briefly, doing the rock star thing. It was just really cool, because this is a guy who, believe it or not, when we both worked that corporate job, we took a day off of work and drove to Chicago to a Myers store. If you're in the Midwest, you know what a Myers store is. Kind of like a Walmart kind of thing. They've got everything. They've got toilet seats. They've got food. They've got lumber, I think, or hardware. Anyway, Hulk Hogan, the immortal Hulk Hogan, was doing a book signing around that time. And Rick and I literally drove that morning and then drove back that night. But we waited in line for Hulk Hogan to make an appearance and sign these books. He was doing his autobiography tour and met the immortal Hulk Hogan. He shook my hand. He shook my hand, brother. And his hand was huge, dwarfed my hand. Anyway.
For all my Hulkamaniacs that have stuck with me through the thick and thin, train, said their prayers, and eat their vitamins, be a survivor, man. Don't smoke, it's a joke.
So Rick and I had that share experience. Anyway, so back to the band. So this album comes out 2009. And again, my friend being in the band probably helps, but really enjoyed it a lot. And it wasn't until a couple years later that I got back into record collecting. So 2009, I think it was about 2010, 2011, I started kind of dabbling my toes back and building a record collection. Fast forward years later, I had no idea that this had ever been put on vinyl. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It was put on vinyl. But it was probably limited press and probably something that they did for like fan club or just sold at shows, that sort of thing. And like I said, this thing has been unattainable. Even like when my friends go to record shows or they're at shops, this is always the album, or has been. And if you're watching this, you know who I'm talking about. You've seen me send this to you via text, like, hey, if you see this, this is the record I'm after. Because the last couple of years, after I put it on my want list, call it 3 or 4 years ago, price went nuts, like bananas. Like I even did the thing, I don't know if you've done this, I even did the thing where I found people who owned it on Discogs and to send them an unsolicited note.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
Saying, hey, I'm a crazy. No, I said, hey, looking for this album. If you'd be willing to sell, I'd be more than happy to pay for it, pay for it for you. What do you think? And a couple of people wrote back, no, I'm good. No, I'm going to keep it, or I'll keep you in mind. And I even followed up with one guy who I thought I had a fish on the line. 1 year later, and he still wasn't ready to sell. So anyway, long story long, finally, there's been a couple times. One time I came up real close. Somebody had it on Discogs maybe 2 years ago, and it was significant cash. I really, really thought about it. Did the old I'm going to sleep on it move, and slept on it, gone the next morning. So blew my mind. It's come up a couple other times since then. One guy, I think overseas, wanted like crazy money. I think $400 or $500, silly stuff. I think he got it, if I'm not mistaken. So good for that guy or gal or whoever. But this came up literally just a few weeks ago, and a reasonable price based on what they've been going for lately. Pulled the trigger, and I'm going to give you a bonus. I'm going to give you the money shot. Bonus, you ready? So I'm going to blur all this out. So the nudity of the album, I'm going to take it out of this fine vinyl storage solution sleeve. So I'm going to cue the sexy music right here. Maybe less glare. So in the nude, in the original, and again, came in very good condition. A little rough, a little edge wear, a little ding, whatever. But what was not advertised, and I don't know if the seller knew this, is that when I open this bad boy up, you ready? Bam! It's autographed. So this is, here's my friend Rick, right there. So signed. So again, I think they probably got this at the show, and or maybe they came signed when they sold them. I don't know. Again, 2009, hard to say, but really happy to get this. This is an album, like, again, if you like alt rock, it's like start to finish one of my favorite alt rock albums. And obviously, I'm sure there's probably a little bias in there because I know one of the guys in the band, but man, it was a good one. And finally, and I'm sure you can relate to this, whether it's clearly not this album. I don't think many people have this on top of their want list, but you can relate. There's an album that you just can't find anywhere. And if you try to do the online thing like a lot of us do, it's like silly money. And in reality, what I paid probably silly, but it's around Father's Day. It's around, it's about treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself when you can, if you can afford it. And definitely treated myself on this one. And then epilogue, years later, the band kind of disassembled or broke up or whatever you want to call it. And I actually ran into Rick, and I'll say where we were and so forth, but literally on the street and had my kid with me and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, hey, I was going to remember me right away. And he was on his way to work, so I was kind of walking with him, and we were kind of walking and talking. It was good to see him, and I think he's out of music now, but big salute to anybody who chases their dreams. And even if it's kind of, I can relate on a personal level in my own pursuit, my own career in some ways. If you just chase the dream, you should always just go for it, because sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to, but you never know unless you try. You never know unless you just do it, like literally just do it. And I'm so glad in my own life I went for this dream, this absurd dream that a country bumpkin like me could, one day work for the company he always wanted to work for. Just like Rick did. He wanted to be a rock star and be in a band and a national band, and did it all. You should always go for it. And something that I had in common with him, and again, salute. And every time he'd come through town, I think I saw him with her 4 or 5 times. Like, gosh, I know I took a couple dates to see this band. They probably thought I was a complete mark. But anyway, so happy to finally add this to the collection. It's been a long time coming. And it's a couple of years. That's not, like a 10-year Grail or any of those sorts of things. And this is obviously not a Butcher cover and one of those 13th Floor Elevators mono. It's not one of those like super rare records. But for me, and for availability and private print, if you will, I mean, this even has their MySpace address. I don't know if you can see that. MySpace. You remember that? Remember Tom? Tom, wherever you are. Shout out to Tom from MySpace. So anyway, a moment in time, a personal connection, music I wanted to have on vinyl. I listened to it. So cool to hear this on wax, probably from a digital source. It was what they did at the time. But anyway, so happy to knock this, knock it out, George Foreman stuff. Knocked it off the hit list.
Knocked off the bat.
Buddies, what do you think about that? Corny, cheesy, everything in between. What I really want to hear from you is tell me in the comments below, what are your grails, or what's that one record that's at the top of your list? And it could be one of those aforementioned rare stumble effect, for sure, records that every record collector wants, dreams about, is envious about when other people have it, etc. I'm sure it's not something like this, but to me, this has been the one for several years. But tell me in the comments below, what's that number one Grail that you've been hunting for 6 months, 6 years, your entire record collecting journey? Tell me in the comments below. But until then, thank you for watching this quick one. Appreciate you, buddies. When you get the chance to knock off a Grail, knock off your top Grail, or listen to any of your records in your collection. I hope you're doing a better job about it this year. I know I am. I'm listening to a lot more of my music and my record collection than ever before. But when you get the chance, just spin it. See you soon.
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
Well, we out of time.